Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Hijack.
Hi, Jack.
And everyone else. This is Once Upon a Time edition of Weekly Hijack. We just finished...
Sympathy for the De Vil.
Sympathy for the De Vil. Actually, interesting with Cruella's origin story here, I thought one thing that was actually different from Once Upon a Time, one of the first times they've dealt with like an actual like crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for Cruella because she was always kind of crazy in the movie, but... again, interesting choice. Not a little out of the box for Once Upon a Time.
Okay, Zach come here. I know he has stuff to say, but I actually really enjoy this episode.
Well,
a couple of reasons. First off, they played with your expectations because I see the title, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be another bad guy with a sad backstory, etc., etc. And she's like, and they play you for about half or 45 minutes, saying, oh, poor Cruella, etc., etc.
Rapunzel type story.
Yeah. And then it's not, and she's like full on like crazy.
Psychopath.
That look she gives the author when he gets back to her apartment, she's like,
well, and then they also subverted it. I'm like, oh, okay, so they're both modern people in 1920 or whatever, and they go back, but they're not. It's not real life. It's a story realm. It's not Earth.
Oh, you think so?
No, I think that was the whole point of him saying this is realms.
Yeah, because she didn't know the date or anything.
That's an interesting point. I just figured that could also be because she'd been locked in attic for so long.
I think it was a story realm. I didn't, because that
which explains a lot of, which made a lot of sense. Because
which made much more sense. Because I was complaining about how, it's 1920 this, and it's this story. Now, I'll say, coming into it with very low expectations for Cruella, her backstory was one of the more originals that I think worked.
I thought it was a classic backstory in a good way.
In a good way, though. Not like Ursula's was off. Ursula's was lame because it was just a repeat of the same old crap. This was a neat take on Cruella's thing. What I didn't like at all was that we have this mysterious author we've been looking for how long? Cruella just happens to know him?
No, but I don't think that's the thing. Is I think Gold knew from get-go Cruella knew him and purposely brought her in on purpose. See, to me, I thought it was really clever because we need an author backstory, and it did a double.
You felt like that was a tie-in for
that was a tie-in, and it made Cruella important. For a variety of reasons, and it sounds like Gold's like you've been lying to him. He said he watched, but I think he knew some of that.
See, I didn't get the sense that he knew.
Well, I don't know.
He knew the author.
We don't know. We still don't actually know all of Cruella's story. We don't really know how she got to the Enchanted Forest.
And I'm not sure we will see. Well, we might see randomly.
Yeah, at some point, I imagine it'll come up.
Yeah.
But that would be because Gold had this history with Cruella in Enchanted Forest. However, she wound up getting there. So that could be when he found out about connections to this one author guy. Now, I would like to know, because the Sorcerer's Apprentice, indicated that there are other authors, there have been other authors. I'm curious if there are other authors still present, or that are running around, or if he's the main one right now.
They talk about the mantle moving, so I thought he was the only author that's in existence right now. But
that's what I thought too. What I've been disappointed with is that they built this author up into such a giant. The Sorcerer's Apprentice has this air about him of importance and things like that, and they built the author up to be even bigger than that. And he seems, I don't know, he just is left lame in my.
I don't know. I like him being kind of a goon. I think it's clever.
And I don't necessarily mind that he's a goon. I mind that no one else notices or cares that the author doesn't. He's lame. He's not got all this power, that he's not, they all were like, he's going to be the one that fixes everything. And he's just this little guy who doesn't do anything. And that they've not noticed that or played on that at all is annoying to me.
I think the problem is he's powerful because he's the one who can use the pen right now. Is he? I assume so, because Gold said that if he got killed, the mantle would go to someone else who might not want to help him. So I think the author is the only person who can actually do the...
Yeah.
It's not that he himself has much power, it's that he's the only one who can pull off that...
Well, and adding to the lameness is this ink. Who knows what will happen?
Okay, that was a little odd, yeah.
If it is filled or used without the pen. And it's just a dye.
Well, two things.
A hair dye.
Generally, this has been one of my favorite shows in a while. honestly. But the eye thing I thought was a little bizarre.
Why mention that it's got magic power? It's a special. Well, I mean, they had to because Gold has to find some now, and I'm expecting, and hopefully they prove me wrong, but I'm expecting the Gold to find
some random thing
that never. I mean, did we establish that Gold? Where did the pen come from? He had the pen.
No, he got it from the author when they traded out. He took it from him when they met up in the woods, and he captured him.
Okay, but now he knows about the ink. Somehow he knew about the ink.
Well, yeah.
He didn't really understand this. I mean, if you go back and watch the first couple seasons, he wouldn't even understand that there was an author thing.
The problem is Gold's knowledge is very random. I mean,
and that's what annoys me about the show in these later seasons is that it's not consistent in its.
The most consistent character is Regina in many ways.
Well, when did they talk about Gold knowing or not knowing anything about the author beforehand?
Well, he just never acts. He's always been like interested in this author. I mean, not even he wasn't interested before, and then I mean, the author would have been a great way to get your son back. It would have been a great way to do all these other things. I don't know. It just is always.
That's fair.
It's always seemed. It's just this new thing we did. I don't know. But
I don't mind being new because of the season, but I get his level of knowledge of the author is very vague.
Yeah, he goes from not knowing anything to knowing
a lot. Yeah, that's fair. That is problematic.
I'm not completely convinced. Okay, so I do think it's also clever that he wrote that Cruella couldn't hurt anyone, which I thought was great because we're always saying Cruella can't do anything.
Yeah.
And it's basically a wonderful explanation of her being crazy and being basically useless.
That's a good point, actually.
I was watching the flashback. She killed her mom. I'm like, what happened to that Cruella?
Yeah.
And personally, I thought that was a neat twist.
And I'll say this thing for the author. I mean, it is interesting. It plays off the fact that he's kind of a goon, kind of a nobody. Yeah. And they kind of acknowledge that in this episode. He's like, yeah, I actually haven't really done much with my life. I'm just kind of writing about other people's lives. It seems like in the Cruella
section was when he was just discovering that he could start changing.
Which maybe is kind of where he went wrong as an author in a weird way, the
authors aren't supposed to change things. He's supposed to just collect stories.
Mm-hmm. And then he started. Maybe that was what led him on the path to start influencing people like the Charmings and all that kind of stuff.
Which again is I don't know, is part of my problem. And maybe I missed when earlier they made it put the hints in there about Gold knowing Cruella knew the author. But to me, I didn't get that sense at all.
I'm doubting that.
So then it's very hokey that Cruella just happens to have this relationship with the author that might have been the entire turning point of his entire existence as the author. I'm just like, really? That's just lame to me.
I can buy that. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. It is always unknown how much Gold knows, and coincidences.
I think the authors don't. I mean, the writers of the show don't know how much.
In this case, I take this coincidence fine, just because Cruella. I don't know, because I like it.
I liked her I thought her backstory was really good. I don't necessarily like the author tie-in crap.
I do. I'm not convinced about this whole turning Emma's heart evil for killing an innocent. I'm like, she's running self-defense. That's not evil.
Yeah.
If she doesn't know it.
She didn't know anything. There was nothing evil about the act that she did at all. It was the definition of heroic.
No, people overplay the heroes are not supposed to kill thing a little too often. I mean, we've seen Charming kill dragons and stuff like that. I mean, heck, they killed Maleficent, technically at the end of the first season.
They thought they killed, or I guess they didn't, but I know, to me that was she turned evil for one time that she defended her son from someone she was sure was going to kill him. Wow.
It wasn't related to anything emotional. It was the physical act of killing. I mean, and I don't think that's good, is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to defend it. But it was all the physical act. She killed her, and oh no, that put a black mark on her heart or whatever.
Yeah.
There's nothing emotional about it. There was no struggle should I kill this person or not, which is what would really turn your heart black.
Yeah. I mean, it's not nearly as what actually turned Snow's heart black when she, purposely premeditated Cora's death.
Which she did, and it only turned a spot black. She didn't turn... So the Savior has different standards.
Well, who knows?
Turning you evil.
Well,
even
we don't know how it's
though
gonna.
her parents did something specifically to stop her from turning evil.
Well,
I mean, and not even stop her from turning evil. They weren't sure she was going to turn evil before. To make sure that there was no chance of her turning evil, they did something.
well, the thing is,
But wait a minute. But to stop that act of turning evil, all she had to do was actually kill someone? I mean, what doesn't make sense to me is, what would have turned her evil before? A bad breakfast? There's not much...
it's still open. We'll see how they play. And my guess is that's not the full story. That might be the possible starting. Though it seems
it's a little over dramatic. Like no, it's over dramatic. I mean, yes, has shown a strange pinch of or taking elements that you thought were lame and then kind of explaining and making it actually something interesting out of it. But man, they keep trying to push like some of this soap opera-y type stuff.
No, I love the fact that the Charmings, even though they're like, no, we're sorry for doing that, they're like,
okay,
but they still defend it. They're like, but we had to do it.
No, that was the thing that bugged me more than anything, because like previously they had admitted like, yeah, that was wrong. We shouldn't have done that. Now like
they're like, we should have done it, but we would have done it anyway.
Yeah,
We'll do it again.
it's like
They had no faith in their parenting abilities to keep her good. I mean, obviously. I mean, and that's the other thing. Like, they hear this prophecy that she could or may not go back, which is really not any different than any other person ever born. You know.
To me,
and somehow they stayed good people.
Like,
I mean, until they decided to kill a child because of the whole thing.
See, I like the presentation of the author. I really like Cruella's presentation. The weak point, the whole second half of the season is, I don't buy that the Charmings are just crazy.
they've gone off the rails.
The whole season would be better if they weren't in it.
But
And everything about Emma's turning depends on her relationship to them too. I mean, that's where the emotional tie-in is.
Yeah.
Her eyes have been getting more bloodshot the whole season.
She does look awful. She looks like she's on drugs.
It's all related
Drugs are
to
like this.
this trust with her parents, which doesn't even make sense to begin with. So.
I love that Regina's like, dude, just forgive your parents. I mean, Regina for being an evil queen, she makes a lot of sense most times.
She's the anchor.
And she's like, I'm going to just kill Cruella. She's like,
when Regina's being your voice of reason, you know you've got issues.
She's been the voice of reason for like 2 seasons now.
Yeah. I don't know. Once upon a time, writers, you really need to figure out what you're doing with the Charmings, because
I think they need to figure out what they're doing with the whole show.
Yeah.
I mean, have some better, a little more structure.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm not as upset with the author plotting as you are.
I think the whole thing could have been cleaned up.
Okay.
I'm not upset with the author. Well, there's just. I think too many loose ends that they just like, no one will notice if you don't do this.
Yeah, I do think that the idea of having him not be someone as powerful as they're building up, I think that was a choice. I think that was like, we want to surprise you with this.
And I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't necessarily mind that because I kind of like the character. I like the actor. He does a neat job.
He was great in the flashback.
Yeah,
this time.
he was. I like the.
He's like it's no more slow.
But that everyone built him up to be this amazing, powerful person, and that no one at this point is like, this is all we got.
What we need is a Hurley character being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just one line would diffuse a lot.
Just something little that, because if people are thinking it watching it, and no one's thinking it who's in the show, that to me is a disconnect.
Well, that's why Regina works so well half the time. You're like, just forgive it,
Yeah.
Yeah, where the rest of the world is like, agreeing.
Okay. Well, a lot of good spew there.
I will just say one more time, despite all our things about the general sense of the season, I thought this was a really strong episode, self-contained.
It was
the flashback. I thought was one of the strongest flashbacks we've had in a while.
Yeah, a much more interesting origin story for Cruella than I was afraid we would have.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Probably the best possible Cruella flashback.
No, I do think I would not have thought I would say this last week after seeing the preview, but I say get rid of Ursula altogether and just have had Cruella. Now she was lame in the current time, pretty much, but
it kind of explains some of that.
Her backstory is far better than the other one.
Yeah.
And a little shout out to Ted Decker here. We had, if you ever go read the what's it called? The Books of History.
Yeah, it's from Circle.
It reminds me of linking books from Myst. You make the whole world by writing them in the book.
Yeah, similar. But we better wrap this up.
All
So
right,
this has been a Weekly Hijack. Make sure you listen to our regular podcast, Derailed Trains of Thought. New episode coming out, I don't know, in a week or so. Soon. And until then, this is Tim.
This is Nick.
And everyone else, you heard Zach.
Here's Zach mainly.
Good night.
Bye.